Tertium Organum by Pavel D. Ouspensky, Chapter 3. If we consider the very great difference between the point and the line, between the line and the surface and solid, i.e. the difference between the laws to which line and plane and surface, etc., are subjected, and the difference of phenomena possible in point, in line, in surface, we shall indeed come to understand how much of the new and inconceivable the fourth dimension holds for us. As in the point, it is impossible to imagine the line and the laws of the line. As in the line, it's impossible to imagine the surface and the laws of the surface. As in the surface, it's impossible to imagine the solid and the laws of the solid. So, in our space, it's impossible to imagine the body having more than 3 dimensions, and impossible to understand the laws of existence of such a body. But, studying the mutual relations between the point, the line, the surface, the solid, we begin to learn something about the fourth dimension, i.e., of 4-dimensional space. We begin to learn what it can be in comparison with our 3-dimensional space, and what it cannot be. This last we learn first of all. It's especially important because it saves us from many deeply inculcated illusions, which are very detrimental to right knowledge. We learn what cannot be in 4-dimensional space, and this permits us to set forth what can be there. In his book, The Fourth Dimension, Hinton makes an interesting statement concerning the method by which we may approach the problem of higher dimensions. He says, quote, "Our space itself bears within it relations through which we can establish relations to higher spaces. For within space are given the conception of point and line and plane, which really involve the relation of space to a higher space. Let us consider these relations within our space and see what conclusions we can derive from their investigation. We know that our geometry regards the line as a tracing of the moment of a point, the surface as a tracing of the moment of a line, and the solid as a tracing of the moment of a surface. On these premises, we can put ourselves this question: is it not possible to regard the 4-dimensional body as a tracing of the movement of the 3-dimensional body? But what is this movement, and in what direction? The point moving in space, leaving the tracing of its movement. A line moves in a direction not contained in it, because in a point there is no direction whatsoever. The line moving in space, leaving the tracing of its movement. The surface moves in a direction not contained in it, because moving in a direction contained in it, a line will continue to be a line. The surface, moving in space and leaving a tracing of its movement, the solid, moves also in a direction not contained in it. If it should move otherwise, it would remain always the surface. In order to leave a tracing of itself as a solid or 3-dimensional figure, it must set off from itself, move in a direction which, in itself, it has not. In analogy with all this, the solid, in order to leave as the tracing of its movement the 4-dimensional figure, in brackets hypersolid, may move in a direction not confined in it, or in other words, it shall come out of itself, set off from itself, move in a direction which is not present in it. Later on, it will be shown in what manner we shall understand this, but for the present we can say that the direction of the movement in the 4th dimension lies out of all those directions which are possible in a 3-dimensional figure. We consider the line as an infinite number of points. the surface as an infinite number of lines, the solid as an infinite number of surfaces. In analogy with this, it's possible to consider that it is necessary to regard a four-dimensional body as an infinite number of three-dimensional bodies, and four-dimensional space as an infinite number of three-dimensional spaces. Moreover, we know that the line is limited by points, that the surface is limited by lines, that the solid is limited by surfaces. It is possible that a four-dimensional body is limited by three-dimensional bodies. Or it is possible to say that the line is the distance between 2 points. The surface is the distance between 2 lines. The solid between 2 surfaces. Or again, that the line separates 2 points or several points from one another. For a straight line is the shortest distance between 2 points, that the surface separates 2 or several lines from each other, that the solid separates several surfaces from one another, as the cube separates 6 flat surfaces from another, its faces. The line binds several separate points into a certain whole, the straight, the curved, the broken line. The surface binds several lines into a certain whole, the quadrilateral, the triangle. The solid binds several surfaces into a certain whole, the cube, the pyramid. It is possible that a four-dimensional space is the distance between a group of solids separating these solids, yet at the same time binding them into some to us inconceivable whole, even though they may seem to be separate from one another. Moreover, we regard the point as a section of a line, the line as a section of a surface, the surface as a section of a solid. By analogy, it is possible to regard the solid, in brackets the cube, the sphere, the pyramid, as a section of a four-dimensional body, and our entire three-dimensional space as a section of a four-dimensional space. If every three-dimensional body is a section of a four-dimensional one, then every point of the three-dimensional body is the section of a four-dimensional line. It is possible to regard an atom of a physical body as not as something material, but as an intersection of a four-dimensional line by the plane of our consciousness. The view of a three-dimensional body as the section of a four-dimensional one leads to the thought that many, for us, separate bodies may be the sections of parts of one four-dimensional body. A simple example will clarify this thought. If we imagine a horizontal plane intersecting the top of a tree and parallel to the surface of the earth, then upon this plane the sections of branches will seem separate and not bound to one another. Yet, in our space, from our standpoint, these are sections of branches of one tree, comprising together one top, nourished from one root, casting one shadow. Or here is another interesting example expressing the same idea, given by Mr. Leadbeater, the theosophical writer, in one of his books. If we touch the surface of a table with our fingertips, then upon the surface will be just 5 circles. And from this plane presentment, it is possible to construe any idea of the hand. No, it's impossible, sorry. Okay, from this plane presentment. It is impossible to construe any idea of the hand and of the man to whom this hand belongs. Upon the table's surface will be 5 separate circles. How from then is it possible to imagine a man with all his richness of physical and spiritual life? It's impossible. Our relation to the 4-dimensional world will be analogous to the relation of that consciousness which sees 5 circles upon the table to a man. We see just fingertips. To us, the 4th dimension is inconceivable. We know that it is possible to represent a 3-dimensional body upon a plane, that it is possible to draw a cube, polyhedron, or a sphere. This will not be a real cube or a real sphere, but the projection of a cube or of a sphere on a plane. We may conceive of the 3-dimensional bodies of our space somewhat in the nature of images in our space, of, to us, incomprehensible 4-dimensional bodies. And that concludes chapter 3. And that was pretty interesting. I hope you found that interesting. And I hope you'll join me for the next chapter. Till soon.